Well, no one would disagree that things have been very challenging here in the state of Illinois for the last year or two. But today was the governor's best address ever. I think that he did an excellent job of laying out a course of action. He talked about the placing high priority on education. One of the key things that came out of this speech, a speech about the future of our budget at a time when we have no budget, he talked about the need to make education our number one priority. Right now, we underfund education for every school district in the state. And he has acknowledged that we cannot continue to do that. He appealed to all members of the General Assembly to work with him to fully fund education and make that the top priority for the General Assembly as much as his. I think he also, the tone was good. The tone was very much about, look, there are things that you want to accomplish on the other side of the aisle. There are things that we want to accomplish. Let's come together, build a compromise, and let's get Illinois moving forward again. The real way to get out of our problems is to get our economy moving in the right direction. And I think the governor was right to continue to come back to that, to remind us, how do we get to where we need to go to move Illinois in the right direction? Joining me today is someone from our local Senate district, Dr. Berkey, from Superintendent of Schools in District 158. And the governor talked a lot about education today, which I think had to make you pretty happy. What did you think about what the governor had to say today?
Well, thank you very much for having me down today. It was great to see his address directly. And I think the thing in his address that's most important to me as a pre-K through 12th grade superintendent is his talk about fully funding the foundation level.
Yeah, we haven't heard that in a long time.
For
right?
7
Right.
years now, the foundation level hasn't been fully funded, and that has been detrimental to my district as well as most districts around the state. And while I think funding reform needs to happen, if the foundation level just gets fully funded, that's going to help everybody immediately. And so I'm very encouraged to hear that he called for full funding.
And that takes pressure off of property taxes in your district. I mean, I think that's one of the things that the governor's been very keenly aware of, is that people in our area are dying from the property tax.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there needs to be long-term funding reform where there's less reliance on property taxes. We all know that. But in the short term, yes, funding the foundation level is really going to help. All of us.
You know, I think a lot of people were surprised at a time when we have no budget that the governor put a major emphasis on education. He made that very clear today, that that's his number one priority. How does that resonate with everything else that's going on? How does that resonate in the education community, the way he made that priority?
Well, education's the future of this state, and I think, from what he said, he clearly understands that. And unless we have a strong pre-K through 12 education system, nothing else is really going to matter in Illinois. And so I think he really has a keen understanding of that. But I will tell you, it's in our interest as schools as well to have the whole state economy be in a very positive condition, because that lifts up the whole state and makes us fiscally sound for the future. So while I'm very encouraged by what he says about education, and I also want to see all these other reforms and things that can truly make Illinois' economy stronger, because that's what's going to help not only education, but taxpayers of the state.
Yeah, that really is the whole package. It's not any one piece. It's a whole package of things. Well, I hope you're going to spend some time coming down to join us here in Springfield to buck us up and reinforce that message.
Definitely. Really appreciate all your support in pre-K 12 education. You've been a great supporter of our district and others in Illinois.
Well, like you said, that's what it's all about. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Joining me from our district is Village President Miller of East Dundee. Thanks for coming down here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, the governor had a lot of interesting things to say today, a very different tone than he has used in some of his previous speeches. Some of what he's had to say before in the past has not always been on key with what the municipalities think.
Correct.
What did you think of the governor's message today?
Well, I thought it was very good. I think that the three things that he talked about, which is reform, cutting costs, and then adding a revenue component to there, is obviously necessary. We're going through our budget process as well too right now, and I don't think you can deal with it without doing all three. You have to look at that honestly. So I think that is it's an important step, and I think both sides need to work very, very strongly together to try and get that. I think this is an achievable goal.
I think, and I came from local government as well. I think it's sometimes very frustrating for local government officials to come to Springfield and say, "Why can't you people just get the work done?" But smaller government closest to the people, it has a much higher level of accountability that I think really drives really strong fiscal management and good public policy. You've obviously done amazing things in East Dundee. What is your message to the General Assembly, or what do you think we should be concentrating on to build that kind of consensus?
Well, one of the things that he talked about was compromise and consensus, and that's something that I experienced firsthand. When I took over the village of East Dundee, we didn't have a good financial situation. We had our largest company was going to move out of town, and we had some issues. And it was only through compromise and through working that we were able to build a coalition that was to get this done. We have a very diverse board. We have a board that consists of pretty much every political faction that exists today, and yet we're still able to work as a team because what we know is this is what our residents put us in place to do. If we just sit there and argue and not get the job done, we're not doing anybody any good. And I'm so glad to work with people like you that I know are able to come down here and work with Republicans, Democrats, whatever it needs to happen to get the job done. That's why we're here, and we support you fully. You've done wonderful for the village of East Dundee.
Well, I think you and I think a lot alike in that, is that put your partisan politics aside, let's just get the job done. You have had a very strong, since you've come into office, a very strong economic development program. How has what's been going on down here in Springfield impacted your ability to recruit businesses to East Dundee?
Well, we don't have so much a problem with people coming down there. We've been able, the incentives that we've been able to come up with ourselves, really, we haven't seen an issue yet because of our location of people moving in or out of the state. That hasn't impacted us as much yet. We're hopeful that as the governor works towards this process with the budget there, that some of the funding that the local governments get, we still continue to receive. Property tax he talked on, that's a very good subject. We personally in East Dundee haven't raised property tax in over 4 years now, which is great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. However, I will say there are some neighboring towns of ours, like Sleepy Hollow, for example, or Campton Hills, that require that because that's 90% of the money that they have coming in. They don't have the industry and the business that I do. Right. So we need to realize that every town is different, and we can't take a one-size-fits-all approach to fixing everybody in the state of Illinois' economy.
Well, I want to thank you very much for coming down and sharing your thoughts. I'm glad that you had a good reaction to what was said today, and we need you to keep coming down and talking to me and to other members of the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle to really promote the idea that we need to put our partisanship aside and get the job done around here, because that is what has stood in the way of moving Illinois forward. And I want to make sure the state isn't doing anything to hinder your economic development opportunities in East Dundee. So thank you.
If it was, I'm sure you would hear from me.
Yes.
So thanks.
Yes, I know I would.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much.